Hey, welcome back everyone. How you doing? It's me, Mr. 4K Upscaler. As you can see, this is Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, and the TCL television, model number 55-inch P605. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to spend 22 minutes and 40 seconds trying to find the best calibration for this game. Also keep in mind, this is a budget TV, 4K TV. It's not a high-end TV. Obviously, this will look much better on an OLED TV. If you have it, if you have a high-end OLED TV, B7, C7, E7, or A1E, or if you're lucky enough to have a Z9D, then obviously you're going to have much better experience. But considering this is a budget TV, and I only spent $500 for it, you can get it for $600. It's not bad at all, guys. With this TV, you're definitely getting your money's worth, considering the asking price and then what you get with this TV. I'm also going to talk about the HDR and how HDR works, because to me, still, after I don't know how many months I've been doing this, a lot of people don't seem to understand how the whole HDR process works. Like, what's the magic? Yes, you do have to have a processing hardware to do that, and it has to be a 10-bit panel. It has to be a wide color gamut standard. It has to have a certain standard peak brightness, which is 700. And but the trick is that a lot of these TVs, including the LG, they're using certain shortcuts called dynamic metadata. What that means is there's a processing within this TV, within the chip, that it's able to decode the signal. Okay, this game, for example, right now, it's encoding and sending the signal. It's letting us know that it's already rendered in HDR, in high dynamic range. Now, what this TV is going to do, once you turn the HDR on, it's going to have a black screen because it's processing. It's going to process that signal, compress that signal, and then it's going to render that signal with high dynamic range on this TV. Now, depending on what type of high dynamic range TV you have, will depend on the experience. Obviously, the better HDR TV you have, the better HDR experience is going to be, okay? If you have a Z9D, obviously HDR on Z9D will look much better than here. If you have an OLED, obviously the HDR on your OLED is going to look much better than here. So this is like what dynamic metadata is, okay? In basic terms. If you guys want to get more technical into it, then you can Google it, you can learn it, or you can go to Vincentio, you can go to his channel, which is the HDTV tests, and he can go into more technical detail. But if you are not familiar with that technical language, then you're going to be lost. You know, he's going to start putting out some words out there, and you're going to be lost, like DCPI. What is he talking about here? What is the measurement? What's 2020? What is he talking about? You're going to be lost, because you don't know the technical language that he's using. He's using a technical language because he's certified. That's what he does for a living. So to him, that's the language he uses. Just like a mechanic will use a different language, or if you talk to a pharmaceutical, they use a different language, or if you talk to a pilot, he'll have a different language, and so forth and so on. Okay? Alright, so that's just something I had to put out there. Now let's continue with the game, shall we? Alright, so this is the beginning of the game. There's Chloe. I mean, so far it looks great. I like what I'm seeing. This is all in-game engine. This is not a CGI movie or anything like that. It's an in-game engine, and it looks very nice. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do here, hold on a second. Okay, let me keep it right here because this is a good spot for me right here to pause it, so that way I can see what I can do with my calibration here. Alright, so let's go hit the TV brightness. Okay, here's the biggest problem here. Okay, I have my TV brightness at normal. And right there, I can see that I'm losing that peak brightness of HDR. So remember, when you're watching an HDR game, the TV brightness has to be at the brightest, okay? I purposely left it at default so that way I can show you the difference. Now, look what's gonna happen once I move it to a brighter mode. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but I get more detail now on her dress, jeans, and in the distance. I can see the smoke in the distance here. Maybe I can adjust my low light. You see that smoke right there? I'm able to see that smoke. That's because of the peak brightness that's brighter now, so I get to see a more detail on that high dynamic range. That's what really high dynamic range really is, for you to see more of a depth of field in the distance, to see the stuff in the distance, and of course to get the deep dark levels darker and white brights brighter, white brights level brighter, and meaning white balance, the more brighter. And of course the color, to get the more natural color through that. Okay, so we're gonna go continue with the game. I just wanted to show you that. We'll go calibrate this as we go, okay?
Wow.
That looks pretty good. Now this is another great example right here. This looks excellent. I wish that I could. Can I zoom it in? That would be nice if I could zoom it in. Let me see. Upper right. Brightness, sharpness, motion blur. Oh, look at that. You can even change the facial expression. I didn't know you could do that. That's pretty cool. Let's go back to our calibrating process here. Okay, so remember what I did earlier. I put the TV brightness to brighter because that's what you need in order for the HDR to take the effect. So TV brightness brighter. Picture mode for HDR has to be bright as well. Picture size, always keep it direct because I want a direct source. Remember, we're looking for a direct source. Now, since we have all of this here, TV brightness brighter, picture mode bright for the HDR, picture size direct. Now let's move on to the advanced picture settings. Alright, another important stuff here is the local dimming. The local dimming has to be set to the maximum in order for you to take the advantage of 72 local dimming zones. It has to be set to high. Again, another important part here. Remember, I always talk about the letter E, shape like a letter E. Those three right here, they have to be like this. Backlit has to be maximum, contrast has to be maximum, and brightness has to be at 50. This is something that has to be set this way in order for you to truly get the detail out of HDR. Now, in terms of sharpness, this is something that will depend on you. Sharpness will really depend on how far are you sitting from the TV. What's the distance? Is it 7 feet, 8 feet? All right, and how big the TV is it 55, is it 65? The sharpness really is going to depend on the viewing distance. All right, what is your viewing distance here? So for me personally, since I'm sitting, 3.5 feet away from the TV for this purpose of calibrating, for me, 20 seems to be reasonable. For you, might be something different. But I'm going to try to make it fair, and I'm going to keep it at, how about 15? I'll keep it on 15. Color, I'm going to try to go a little bit and go to 50. Okay, to get a little more of that pop. See, I didn't go over the threshold. I just went a few clicks more. I left it at 50. How about this? How about I leave it at 55 to truly give it that pop? You see, now it's truly, the picture now is truly popping. You can definitely see that here. You can definitely see the outline of the dress and everything. So now you're getting a much nice, better HDR here. Now let's continue. Let's exit this. And let's continue.
Is this your store?
No, my father's.
And then same thing here, like you can see in the distance, you see the whatever the monkeys are in the distance. You see HDR is nicely represented here. You see how the hair. Here, let me bring the camera a little bit closer. Oh, I like this. If I can. You see, for example, how the hair, it's shining brownish. That's the HDR doing its job, okay, here. So I just wanted to show you that really quick. All right, let's continue. Remember, I left the sharpness at 15. Actually, you know what, man? I think I could leave the sharpness at... I think easily I could leave the sharpness at 10 here. Honestly, I think 10 wouldn't bother me that much. Okay, so let's continue. We have a sharpness at 10 and color at 55. Let's continue.
How much?
800 rupees, please.
800 rupees.
Okay for you, 550.
Incredible.
And then here's another one good here. There you go, guys. Something, I don't know if you guys knew about this. So here you can see that having sharpness at 10 gives me a much better, smoother outline, you know, in the distance and in the facial expression on the dress. The outline means it's not like, it's not popping out of the screen, like jagginess out of the screen. This is why the sharpness sometimes is best left at the minimum, or like it not totally below the threshold, but like within the threshold, like 1/4, if you will. But again, it all depends on your viewing distance. For me personally, 10, it's good. For you guys, if you're watching it from 7 feet, 8 feet, but even from 8 feet, leaving it at 10, honestly, you're just going to get that much better, smoother, kind of like anti-lacing, kind of smoother textures and smoother artifacts and everything. This is funny. Let's give her a smile. There you go. Now let's continue. Let's do this again. Remember, sharpness is at 10 and color it's at 55.
So, does your father usually leave you here alone?
No, he's away fighting the devils.
And the army called him up today.
There's another good one. You see how the sunset, it's overshadowing her face nicely right there. You can see it right here. And somebody's been asking me yesterday, what about the deep dark levels? What about the bending light? There is no bending light here, people. Full array of local dimming truly will make sure that doesn't becomes an issue, which is pretty good for a budget TV. The reason I'm so impressed with TCL is because I'm doing this on a budget TV. And this is also coming from a guy who had 3 different types of OLEDs, okay? I know OLED from top to bottom. I had all 3 different types of OLEDs, all right? And I can firsthand tell you the difference between the OLED and this. Obviously, it's impossible for the LED to reach those deep dark levels that OLED has. But this is pretty darn good. Pretty darn good for LED with full array local dimming to get those deep dark levels. Okay, so let's continue here. Remember, we had sharpness at 10, color at 55. Color temperature, I like it. You know, I usually recommend warm, but honestly, it's just better to keep it on normal, because with normal, you will get not too much of that blue UV light and also not too much of that sepia yellow color. All right, what you're getting here is you're getting the balanced RGB. You're getting the balanced temperature of red, green, and blue here. All right, you're getting that nice color tone. Okay, and that's very important for picture quality. This is a very important stuff right here. So I would keep it on normal. Game mode, I would turn it on, but I haven't yet downloaded the update. I know I have to go to a website. TechnoDad has already made a video on that. I've seen his video, and thanks, man, for showing me that video. I just will have to go through a website of TCL and then download it, open the folder, put it on the USB, and then transfer the stuff on the USB, and then bring it back and put it into my TV, and then go through the whole process step. It's kind of annoying that TCL is going the same route as LG. I don't know why they're doing it this way. Why can't you just have the firmware update through internet? I mean, it's 2017. Why is it that we have to go through this ridiculous USB stick process? It's just beyond me. But anyway, let's continue. So remember, we have sharpness at 10, color at 55, color temperature normal, and then here backlit. This has to stay like this all the time. You can't touch this. All right, and there's color at 55. Now let's continue.
No heat balancing.
And here's another great example here. You see the color 55, it's really just that right amount for this game, because this game, it's all about the nature, the sunset, dynamic light. It's an adventure, so you're always going to have the environments representing the nature, and therefore it's going to be more colorful. And this is why I felt, okay, 55, it's something that's going to be needed a little bit here for this HDR game.
Well, if it was my choice, I wouldn't need you here alone.
But so far, I'm very impressed here. It definitely looks great.
That's 100.
But the 400 no best plus Danish.
You don't want this. It's broken. See?
And you can see right here too, you see how the shadow, it's perfectly aligned. You know, your deep dark levels, and I'm not being crushed here. And when I talk about not crushing the deep dark levels, the idea of HDR, and you can ask Vincent this from HDTV Test, he'll tell you the same thing. The idea is not to crush your deep dark levels. The idea is for you to see all this detail. That's the whole purpose of it, okay? All right, I'll bring my camera a little bit closer to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, you want to see all this detail. You see, you don't want to, you're not missing any detail. You're not missing any tone here. You're getting exactly the amount of proper detail needed. And I have seen some videos the way people calibrate, and I don't mean to be rude, but I've seen people move color to like 80. I've seen people move brightness to 30, move gamma to all the way to 0. you're crushing your deep dark levels. You're oversaturating your colors. You're actually losing detail. Okay? And I have learned that too. I made those mistakes in the past, but I have studied a little bit, and I find out that there's actually a standard that's needed in order for you to truly appreciate the HDR and the content of the TV that you're watching. All right, let's go continue a little bit. I only have like a couple more minutes left. Let's continue.
You don't know the story? Goodness, fuck.
And then look at here. This is excellent. This is where you truly appreciate the HDR here. It just looks fantastic. You know, and like I said, this is what you're looking for when you're calibrating. There has to be a certain standard, like, okay, HDR. TV brightness gotta be brighter. Picture mode has to be bright HDR mode. Local contrast, local dimming, they have to be high. So that way you can get those deep dark levels. They have to be high. Backlit has to be at 100. Contrast at 100. Brightness at 50. Okay? Sharpness, it's a optional preference depending on the distance, the viewing distance, but I would highly recommend 10. Color, I went with 55 because I felt this game, because of the content of the game, needs a little bit more of that color pop. But you see, I didn't go full-blown oversaturation. I went with 55. Okay? I didn't go way above the threshold. Okay, you see how I stayed within the threshold at the 55. So, well, the video is going to end pretty soon, and hopefully you guys like this video. There will be a part 2 of this video game where you get to see her walk around, you know, in the nature and stuff like that. We'll do some more videos on this. This is just my first look into it. Okay. So there you have it. Hopefully you guys liked the video.